Before we get into the news, we just want to talk about the last podcast episode, which was the first in a series that we hope to continue called Vegan Complaints Department.
Yeah, this was super popular. So thank you to everyone who listened and let us know how much you enjoyed it. We were really glad to hear that because we had so much fun putting that together and recording that episode. So we're really, really pleased with the feedback. And just a reminder, as Lucas said, we want to create a series. We want to do this going forward. But to do that, we need your complaints.
We can only complain so much on email ourselves. Trust us, we're pretty good at it. But probably not enough to fill a full episode. So we really, really encourage you to send any emails that you've sent off through to us. At our email address info@thatvegancouple.com.
Yeah, or you can also send us a message via Patreon if that's easier as well. So, also, just to let you know, we are recording this episode a little bit earlier than we usually do in our podcast recording schedule. So when this comes out, it's almost going to be 2 weeks from today, which is when we're recording, which means if there's a breaking story in that time that you think, TVC, why didn't you include it in your episode, your news desk? Well, you know why, because we're recording before it happened, basically. So
exactly, and some of the news articles that we're going to be talking about in this episode are already, say, maybe a week or so old. So by the time you're listening to the episode, it could be a few weeks old, but their content is still very, very relevant.
Yes, and of course, stories can update in that time. They're evolving. So
that's right.
They're our disclaimers, people. But as you said, the topics, the content it's kind of timeless.
Yes.
That's what I love about news desks. It's not, I mean, you're talking about the news, but you're talking about something much deeper than just what's happening. They're the underlying
issues and themes, aren't they?
Yeah, exactly. So anyhow.
The first story we want to talk about today is a new short film or video by Greta Thunberg and Mercy for Animals. It's a wonderful collaboration. There's an article in Veg News about it that we're going to use to discuss. Will we get straight into that?
Yeah.
Today, animal rights group Mercy for Animals debuted For Nature, a new short film starring vegan climate activist Greta Thunberg. In the hard-hitting 5-minute film, Thunberg explains all of the ways in which human exploitation of animals and the planet have led to health crises such as COVID-19 and environmental catastrophes. Thunberg's narration, supplanted with gripping images of destruction, points to the interconnectedness of the way humans treat animals and the planet and the consequences they face as a result. Thunberg is known for her unapologetic approach to educating the public about the urgency of fighting the climate crisis, and the 18-year-old vegan does not hold back in For Nature.
She's 18 already. When did that happen?
I actually knew that and was surprised to hear that she hadn't actually turned 19 yet.
Really? I still thought she was like 16 or something. My gosh, kids grow up fast, don't they? Wow.
The climate crisis, the ecological crisis, the health crisis, they are all interlinked, she says in the film. We no longer see the links between them. I would like to connect the dots because let's face it, if we don't change, we're effed. Yes, exactly.
It was so cool to hear her say that.
It really was.
Yeah.
It really was. It was similar to when, she was being interviewed or having some kind of interaction with, was it someone at the UN? And when she kind of got very, very unapologetic and teary but angry at the same time, sort of blaming them for saying, you stole our future.
Yeah, it was her speech.
Yeah. And it was so it was reminiscent, wasn't it?
Yeah, but this is better because she swore. I just want to see you go for it, Greta.
That's true. That's true. Well, that takes it to the next level of seriousness, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, it's just quite frank. I mean, it's extraordinary to think where things have got to and where they're going to get to.
Yeah.
And so, quite frankly, I just feel like you need someone to put it out there and say, hey, we're effed.
That's right.
We are effed. And for it to come from her, I think is just fabulous because... yes, she has been a very popular, a public figure, obviously, but we haven't heard her let her hair down to that degree, I don't think.
Yeah, and she's also speaking the language of, I was going to say her generation, but we all swear, don't we?
I think I swear more than most 18-year-olds.
It's more that we tend to censor ourselves, don't we, on public
of course.
platforms.
Yeah.
Whereas, I don't think... Did they beep it out?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. So they did that as well.
Mm.
But it's again...
It's just very frank.
Very frank.
Yeah, which is needed. Very much needed. So I was excited to hear that from her.
As was I.
Like, yes, finally the gloves are coming off and we're getting real people.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it was a very intensely focused about animal agriculture in terms of its impact on the environment. And I know she's touched on that on multiple occasions previously, but this was kind of very direct, very specific. And it was the best I've seen of her to date speak about animal exploitation. And
I think it's the most that we've ever heard her speak about animal agriculture. I really liked the film. I thought it was spot on. I don't think I can even pick any flaws with it, really. My only criticism was going to be that I wish this came out a long time ago, really, when she was at her peak, when all the climate marches were happening every Friday.
Yes.
And she was really in the media, just mainstream, I don't want to say weekly, but it was quite a strong following. And I know she's still got a big following, but I feel like that momentum has died off with COVID and all the lockdowns and people aren't hitting the streets.
I agree with what you're saying. She was actually named Time Person of the Year in 2019. So that's 2 years ago. So what you're saying is if this video had been made 2 years ago, at the height of her popularity, it would have been more impactful, more wide-reaching. That's what I'm not saying that she's yesterday's news. No.
By a long shot, but
if she's yesterday's news, we're in trouble.
Last century's news, mate. Forget us. Jeez. But I just wish it came out a long time ago. And, obviously she is focusing on animals here because this was, as you said, made by Mercy for Animals. So they've got obviously an animal focus. Her focus hasn't been on animals. It hasn't been making that strong connection for people previously, which is we have kind of criticised her a bit about that on the show. And I just wish that this came out a long time ago. Because how many people were at all those climate marches still eating animals?
Yes.
And I remember interviewing someone, I think it was in Portugal. Actually, I think it was our very last cube, and I was exhausted and in tears, having a meltdown at the end of our last European tour. I don't know how many years ago. It's all a blur at this point. And I remember having this, we were outreaching, I remember having this very awkward debate with a much older man who was at one point praising us for the cube and the footage and showing people.
Yes.
But he wasn't vegan, of course, and so when I tried to call him on it and make that connection, he went all, fossil fuels on me and pulled out Greta, and I'm like, but Greta's vegan, but you don't know that because she's so focused on fossil fuels and not animal agriculture. So even the people that are following her, that are using her as an example to shut vegans down, don't even know that she's vegan. And that's my problem. If someone doesn't know you're vegan, you're not being vocal enough. So it was interesting, actually, at the beginning of this Veg News article, they called her unapologetic. And I would say that is true in terms of calling out a lot of industries, but it hasn't been true from my perspective until now regarding animal agriculture. I feel like she has been quite apologetic regarding animals, unfortunately, up until now.
I know exactly what you're saying, and her focus has been more on fossil fuels, which, again, people have been talking about for a decade or more now. It wasn't An Inconvenient Truth made by Al Gore. I think it came out in 2006. So that's 15 years ago that he was...
She was in nappies when we were all debating fossil fuels.
So...
Do you know what I mean? Like, that's...
It's been used as a scapegoat. It's been made out to be the villain, and animal agriculture has gone under the radar a lot. I mean, we've got Cowspiracy on Netflix, which is fantastic. But again,
Kip wasn't made Person of the Year.
No.
And it's different coming from someone like her compared to that film. Like, it's totally different.
It is, and it's just got me thinking towards the end, I think, of the 5-minute film. She says something about how some of us don't have many choices, and some of us have a lot of choice, and those with the most power have the most responsibility, or the most privilege, however you want to say it. They're kind of words that she needs to heed herself, and she has done in this collaboration with Mercy for Animals, but needs to do it on biggest platforms, bigger stages. True.
It's funny that you say that because, like, we just watched the film now before recording, but we had watched it previously. I forgot. That's why we had to watch it again. We watched it like last week, and that's exactly what I thought towards the end. I'm like, preach what you need to hear, girl. Yes, you do have a responsibility. Yes, you do have that privilege. Yes, you do have that platform. So why haven't you been pushing animal agriculture as at the forefront of your message from the very beginning? Because that would have been a totally different scenario. Imagine all those millions of people that hit the streets hearing, knowing, and being held accountable for what they're eating.
You're spot on. And also, all of the things that she talks about in the 5-minute film, they're not new to her. She's known about those for a couple of years, at least, since she's been vegan.
Yeah.
But so if you knew about all of that, and obviously you're making this film about the importance of all of what we're talking about, how come you haven't been talking about it in its totality from the beginning?
Yeah, I know. I feel bad.
With such an emphasis.
I feel like we're calling out Greta. It wasn't supposed to be like that.
It wasn't at all, because it's a great film.
Yeah,
we just wish
really
that this was Greta 2 years ago at the height of her popularity.
Yeah.
Not that she's not popular now.
But she's not as popular. Who knows? I don't know. She doesn't come up on our feed anymore, so I actually thought she left social media. But Instagram,
I think it's just an algorithm.
Yeah, Instagram is just doing its thing where you see like 5 accounts all the time that you don't even like care about. I thought, where's Greta gone? And I went to check her account. This was like months ago. I'm like, oh wow, she is still around. I don't know. It's weird. Anyway, at the very end, talking about the ending of the film, she asked the question. The last line is, "What will you do?" I really like that. I felt like this film was
Socratic.
Yes.
Well, that was a Socratic question anyway. Yeah.
Yes, but also just holding people accountable. Like, you know, it's very easy to put it in the hands of governments and industry, and they need to do this and they need to set new quotas and cut emissions and blah, 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 new targets. Yeah, that's all great. But individually, we can't just keep putting that responsibility onto others. What are you going to do as an individual?
Yes.
Oh, here's what you can do. Stop putting animals in your mouth.
Exactly.
Okay, cool. That's something I don't have to rely on anyone else to enforce. That's my choice. And no, it's not a choice. We know that. But you know what I mean? Yeah. And I think it was a very well put together film. 5 minutes is a great length. Yeah. Very shareable. Yeah. I think the production quality was high. Yes.
It was.
The images were great.
Images were very good. Yeah. Fast moving. There was good graphics. Look, I really couldn't fault it. I liked how eggs were included. And
I was going to say that because quite often you hear meat and dairy for climate, which is, bang on because cows, right? But I've always felt like chickens get left off that that table of consideration, right? You know, so it was really good to see chickens in there. And fish. Yes. And also eggs cooking.
Yes. So it was kind of like, other than beef products, it had the...
Yeah.
Well, and sure, other animal products as well, but basically the main ones.
The main ones. Because, you know, chickens are the most exploited land animal, and I feel like that's so often forgotten because we're focusing on cows so much.
Yes.
Because, as I said, they're closely linked to climate problems that we have. So I was really, really pleased to see the egg being cooked. I'm like, yes.
Yes, as was I. And also all of the links between animal agriculture and animal exploitation and the new emerging infectious diseases.
Yeah.
And right at the get-go, COVID-19, because of course that's still very topical.
That's right, and that seems to be what a lot of people care about. So, all right, you don't care about animals. You may care about the environment, every now and again when you feel like it's, it's a bit token sometimes for most people, right? They have to greenwash things, right? Yeah, but health is maybe something you're more concerned about, especially with the lockdowns, with the, economic impact.
People losing their jobs, businesses going out of business.
When are you going to make that connection? Wake up, this affects you too in this particular way. So...
Yeah, a lot of important links were made, clarified, articulated well. Accompanying imagery was great. I think it's fantastic.
It was really good.
One thing I'd like to see, at the time of recording, it's only had 15,000 views on Mercy for Animals' YouTube channel.
That's a shame.
Hopefully it took off more on Facebook. I haven't checked. Typically videos can get a little bit more viral on Facebook.
Yeah.
If we think about Save Ralph, another short film that we spoke about in a not too distant ago podcast, was made by the Humane Society of the United States. That's now had 12 million views on YouTube, and that was a 4-minute video.
Yeah.
So I'd really like to see more buzz around this, and it might be that the other one was...
serious celebrities were in it.
Yeah, Zac Efron and others.
Ricky Gervais.
Yeah.
So I don't know, I assume she's put it on her Instagram. Here I am complaining that she's never on my feed. Well, maybe, Natasha, if you went and checked out her page.
Should we have a look now, see if it's there?
Yeah, go on.
All right. Okay.
All right, we stand to be corrected.
On May 22nd, Greta posted this on her Instagram page, and it's had 1.1 million views,
There
which
you
is
go.
good.
Shut up, you two. You know nothing.
But compared to 12 million for Save
Yeah,
Ralph.
it's not a lot.
So,
Yeah.
and maybe it's got potential, but we need to share it more.
Yeah, so I guess that's what our point is. We will, of course, link this in the show notes on Patreon for this episode. So please do share it on your social media, and that hopefully help boost the views. Obviously, if you still have people in your life that are eating animals, share it with them directly.
Definitely.
Hey, have you seen what Greta's on about?
Yeah.
Greta swore. There you go. Greta said F. We're F'd up.
There's your in. People
No, we're
not
not
just to
F'd
say
up.
that.
Yeah, that's right. What did she say? We are F'd, not we are F'd up.
Yeah.
That's Natasha's take. We're all F'd up. All right. So yeah, let us know in the comments if you've seen Greta's film, what your thoughts were. Did you like it? Did you think she missed anything? I don't know. I feel like she got everything.
Yeah, I mean, I think Mercy for Animals got everything, and
Yeah, true.
Greta was the spokesperson. Congratulations to the team at MFA, they did really well.
Yeah, they did good. Yeah.
The next news article is going to kick off a series of articles which fit a theme of disruption. So this first article is about cyber disruption, because of course we can disrupt in a number of ways.
Yeah.
The article comes from the BBC, and it's titled JBS, Cyber Attack Hits World's Largest Meat Supplier.
When I saw this on social media the other day, I was so happy.
Yes.
It was really, going around. There were so many articles, people talking about it, and it looks like it's had an incredible impact.
Good, let's read. Computer networks at JBS were hacked, temporarily shutting down some operations in Australia, Canada, and the US, with thousands of workers affected. The company believes the ransomware attack originated from a criminal group likely based in Russia, the White House said.
It sounds like a movie, doesn't it? It was the Russians. Blame the Russians.
Yeah, it sounds like, what's that Kiefer Sutherland one that we were watching?
Designated Survivor.
That's the one.
Yes.
The attack could lead to shortages of meat or raise prices for consumers.
So why do they think the Russians were behind? Does the article get into this?
I haven't read it.
Okay.
Sorry.
And the reason we don't read them always is because we like our raw reaction.
Yeah.
If you're wondering, like, why haven't we done our research? We have. We just react in raw. Because that's really strange. Like, they haven't come out and said, oh, it was this group. I was thinking maybe Animal Rebellion were behind it, or some kind of, vegan animal rights group were behind it. But why would the Russians be behind it?
Interesting, isn't it?
Unless they have decided to go vegan. I don't know.
Very, very interesting. In a ransomware attack, hackers get into a computer network and threaten to cause disruption or delete files until a ransom is paid.
Oh, there you go. Your answer's there, kids. Just read it.
The White House says the FBI is investigating the attack. JBS notified the White House that the ransom demand came from a criminal organisation likely based in Russia, White House spokeswoman Karine Jean-Pierre said on Tuesday. I'm also thinking if the Russians could target anything more American, you can't find many more things American than a barbecue, for example.
Yeah.
So talk about a way to, I don't know, I mean, there could be, what am I trying to say here? Basically, this is a great way to stir up anti-Russian sentiment from Americans, isn't it? Oh, those Russians are attacking our meat and our barbecues.
Yeah, right.
So if the US government had some kind of agenda going on in the background, this is a good way to kind of, I don't know, create a smokescreen? I'm not sure. I think I've watched too many conspiracy theory movies. And
I feel like I'm on
series,
a spy film.
Yeah, I'm going to go back to the
No, but I know what you
BBC
mean. It's like a personal attack on American identity.
Yeah.
Kind of.
And
I mean,
what-
you could say that for almost any country, though, because everybody eats meat and,
I know. I'm probably stretching. I'm clutching at straws here.
Yeah, but I know what you mean, like
You do?
cook-offs.
Yeah.
Isn't that what Americans call barbecues? Cook-offs?
Yeah. Cookout?
Cook-out. No, a cook-off is like a competition. Forget
I
it.
think
It's a cookout.
isn't it?
Is
Yeah,
it?
I think so.
I think so.
Yeah.
Oh, I know our American listeners are just going to be laughing and correct us. Whatever, guys.
Guys, since you watch American television shows, how do you not know whether it's a cookout or not?
It's a cookout.
All right. The White House is engaging directly with the Russian government on this matter and delivering the message that responsible states do not harbour ransomware criminals, she added. On Wednesday, Russia's Deputy Foreign Minister Sergei Ryabkov told local media the Biden administration had been in contact with Moscow to discuss the cyber attack. Mm-hmm. JBS said it had made significant progress in resolving the cyber attack and hoped the vast majority of its plants would be operational on Wednesday. Damn it. Go on.
No, I was just going to read just above that. You see these little dot points, just to put this into context in terms of the impact it's had.
JBS from regional player to multinational. JBS is the world's largest meat supplier with more than 150 plants in 15 countries.
It's huge.
It was founded in Brazil in 1953 as a slaughtering business by rancher Jose Batista Sobrinho. The company now has more than 150,000 employees worldwide. Its customers include supermarkets and fast food outlet McDonald's. In the US, JBS processes nearly 1/4 of the country's beef and 1/5 of its pork.
No, they're just...
We've been to too many JBS slaughterhouses around the world that we care to
We have, and you always have problems at those slaughterhouses for vigils. You know, they never cooperate with the activists. They're just really aggressive, shut you down.
Yes. I think it's an internal company policy to be non-cooperative with animal rights activists.
Yeah. So I'm really glad that if the Russians are behind this, that they chose JBS.
Exactly. The company said on Monday that it suspended all affected IT systems as soon as the attack was detected and that its backup servers were not hacked. The United Food and Commercial Workers Union, which represents JBS plant employees, has urged the company to ensure workers still receive their pay. IT systems are essential in modern meat processing plants, with computers used at multiple stages, including billing and shipping.
I'm laughing because I'm thinking, natural though, you know, it's lions though.
Exactly.
You know, hunters...
I know.
You need computers to process your meat that you buy at a supermarket or that you buy at McDonald's. You know, it's not... This is not what lions do.
Exactly. According to the trade group Beef Central, supermarkets and other large end users like McDonald's Burger Patty Supply Network will be some of the most immediately impacted customers due to their need for consistent supply. JBS's 5 biggest beef plants are in the US, and the shutdowns have halted 1/5 of meat production there, according to Bloomberg. That's good.
That's decent, isn't it?
It is,
It's really decent.
Plants in Australia and Canada have also been affected, but the company's South American operations have not been disrupted. Last month, fuel delivery in the southeast of the US was crippled for several days after a ransomware attack targeted the Colonial Pipeline. Investigators say that attack was also linked to a group with ties to Russia.
Okay.
Colonial Pipeline has confirmed it's paid a $4.4 million or €3.1 million. Or is that pound?
That's pound.
Pound ransom to the cyber criminal gang responsible. Okay.
Wow.
Yes. The US government has recommended in the past that companies do not pay criminals over ransomware attacks in case they invite further hacks in the future.
Luca, we've got to learn how to hack.
We do. I think I've got a full-time job just around the corner here, outside of TVC.
Learning how to hack. That's decent, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we've just openly acknowledged that we want to get into criminal activity on our podcast. Who wants to join us?
Does the ends justify the means?
Oh, absolutely, for this kind of thing. I'd do it if I knew how to do it.
Yeah.
I can't. I can download apps these days. I'm pretty good at that, and upgrading software. I can do that, and that's about the extent of it. So this is fascinating, I find, because like I said, I hadn't read anything. I'm just reading headlines throughout the week in anticipation for this podcast to discuss this, and I honestly thought that it was an animal rights group behind it.
Right.
I had no idea that it was just some random Russians wanting money from one of the biggest, companies in the world.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it is that they targeted JBS.
Yeah.
It's so much cooler targeting JBS than targeting, I don't know, some other big corporation that's not as heinous. Heinous, however you pronounce it.
Yeah, definitely. How do our listeners feel? I'm all for it. Is every criminal activity really that bad when it comes to what you're doing? And
great question.
I don't know. I think this is fabulous. And look, to be honest, I think this is working smarter, not harder.
Yeah.
In terms of, I'm saying, vegans, and activists.
Yeah.
This is a really, really great form of disruption. We should be thinking about this.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with you. It's made me think about...
Don't report us. I'm feeling like, I'm saying this, but should I be saying this? But
do you remember the founder of a foundation that we used to volunteer with in Thailand many years ago? We heard a story that he received money for the orphanage from some Thai underground criminal activities, and he said, I have no problem taking money from bad people to do good things.
I think you're confusing two different things.
Am I? Did I just... what did I do?
Yeah. Gary Yourofsky said, I have no problem taking bad money or dirty money to do good things with it.
Are you sure?
Yeah, definitely.
What was the other one that I'm thinking of?
I don't know what he said, what the guy in Thailand said.
I thought he said the same thing.
Well, maybe. I mean, I don't think anyone's got, copyright claims over that sentence. But
no.
I do recall Gary saying that. Okay. Like, basically, if, he was given a donation. Oh, that's right, because the guy who was funding Gary's tours for so long was a carnist.
Yes.
He wasn't a vegan.
Correct.
Philanthropist.
Correct.
And so people were like, hold on, you're taking money from someone who still eats animals to fund your work. And that's when he said, I have no problem taking money from, someone that's doing the wrong thing or dirty thing or whatever,
sure,
to do something good with it.
Yeah. I think both stories are valid.
Probably. Let's just go with that. No one's going to know the difference, so I'll allow it if you allow it. I totally agree with that. And I'm surprised that activist groups, I'm talking about animal rights activist groups, haven't thought of this previously.
You're right. And it's probably got a few cogs turning.
Yeah, it's just so smart. I mean, think about how much goes into doing a regular disruption. It's hard.
Which we're going to talk about in a moment.
We are. And think about regular street activism. It's just so many hours and manpower, and it's exhausting. It's hard work. And then you think about this, you're going to be sitting comfy in your home, breaking the law, and just hacking into something.
Yeah.
And look at the impact. I mean, sure, you can shut down a slaughterhouse maybe for a couple of hours, maybe a day or two, but you're not going to be able to, they're not going to take a hit like this from street activism. This is a much more significant blow.
Yeah, and can you imagine what animal rights activists could do with that kind of money that was spoken about in the Colonial Pipeline ransomware attack?
Yeah, I mean, that's a lot of money. You can do a lot of good things for animals. Think about all the sanctuaries that need that.
That's right. Unfortunately, I don't think the Russian group is going to be using it for good things. I could be wrong. Maybe they're funding orphanages or something.
Maybe. I doubt it.
They're probably a criminal organisation.
Well, they are, yeah.
Criminal things with the money that they're criminally mining. Yes.
But I wouldn't even be doing it for the money. Like, although, the money would be great to help the movement. But even if you just...
just to cause the disruption.
Just the disruption. I don't care about the money.
See, we can get to you. You're not...
and shut them down. It's a really smart way of disrupting. Anyway, thumbs up to criminal activity in this regard. And if you agree with that, make sure you let us know in the comments. Oh gosh, and if you don't agree with it, please don't report us. Anyway, no, I do think it's very, very smart. Working smarter, not harder. Yeah. God, how many people do you think are involved in a hack like this?
I don't know.
When you watch the movies, there's usually like one super computer brainy, freaky, geeky guy or woman, doing their hack thing, and everyone else is standing around going, "Is it done yet? Is it done yet?"
Exactly.
That would be me.
Exactly.
Hurry up, hack them! I don't know.
What was the Green Arrow's wife's name?
Felicity.
Felicity was the
super
head
hacker.
honcho super hacker in Arrow, wasn't she?
Yes, on Netflix. Our Netflix obsession has continued, in case you're wondering. Who's the best hacker you've seen on, any program that you watch, any movie, any series? Who's your favourite hacker?
Let us know.
Do you know a hacker in real life, people?
Yeah, that's the more important
Anybody
question.
out there
Do you know
know a
anyone good enough to do what this alleged Russian organisation has pulled off with JBS here?
You know how you are, I've got a mate with a van.
Yeah.
Everyone always looks for someone with a van to help them move.
Yes,
right?
yes.
So anyone know a mate that's a hacker?
Yeah. There's that businessman with a van, isn't there?
In Australia.
What would this be? It would be, I can't think of it.
Hacker with a code?
Yeah, maybe. Nah.
Hacker with a laptop?
Hacker with a hatchet to bury? I don't know. Let's move on.
Hacker with a world to save?
Yeah, maybe.
Anyway.
From cyber disruption to our next news article, which looks at non-violent civil disobedience disruption, the more traditional form of street activism. This involves the group Animal Rebellion, and the headline reads, McDonald's urge to go 100% plant-based, protesters blockade distribution sites.
How fantastic was this? I'm sure so many of our listeners had seen this going around social media, so many images and news articles. Really fantastic disruption. And again, as I mentioned, we're recording this like almost 2 weeks from when you're going to be listening. So I'm so keen to see how the story develops, because it has been unfolding every day. And there was actually something new that came up on our feed this morning, which we'll talk about in a minute.
Exactly. Distribution centres supplying the global fast food giant McDonald's have been shut down in the UK following a demonstration by animal rights advocates. Protesters with Animal Rebellion closed down the 4 sites in the early hours of this morning. The organisation is connected with Extinction Rebellion and seeks to fight the climate crisis by creating a plant-based food system. The protesters call for McDonald's to abandon animal agriculture and commit to a 100% plant-based menu by 2025. As a result, they stormed the sites in Basingstoke, Coventry, Hemel Hempstead and Haywood. The protest began at 4:30am on Saturday, May the 22nd. Via the organisation's Twitter account, one protester proclaimed, "McDonald's is one of the biggest symbols of the animal agriculture industry, which, as we know, is destroying the planet. It's killing animals, it's exploiting workers, it's doing horrible things. We're here today to demand McDonald's go plant-based." Their demonstration involved erecting giant bamboo structures and displaying large banners. Moreover, protesters linked arms through metal structures. They say the move will affect the chain's 1,300 restaurants nationwide.
That's decent, isn't it?
It's
a decent blow.
An Animal Rebellion spokesperson, James Osden, deplored the fast food giant for its role in deforestation and slaughtering vast quantities of animals. In a statement, he said, "The meat and dairy industry is destroying our planet, causing huge amounts of rainforest deforestation, emitting immense quantities of greenhouse gases and killing billions of animals each year. The only sustainable and realistic way to feed 10 billion people is with a plant-based food system. Organic, free-range and sustainable animal-based options," and that was put in quotes or air quotes, "simply aren't good enough." The group hopes to put pressure on the company's CEO.
I think this is a great idea. I think it was very, very successful, very impactful. It certainly got people's attention. And as I said, it is in the mainstream press, which is great.
Yeah. The bamboo structures that they erected, are they similar to the ones that we saw at Animal Rebellion in London in 2019?
I don't know if they're the same. They did have some kind of structures that people chose to be stuck in right at the top.
Yeah, kind of reminiscent for me of those. I don't know whether they're the same or not. But again, attention grabbing, elevating.
Yes, get people stuck up there and just
make things difficult.
Lock it down.
Proper disruption.
Yeah.
And a lot of planning goes into these.
Oh yeah. No, they're not easy at all.
I've been thinking, since Animal Rebellion in London of October 2019, I wonder what other major sort of disruptions Animal Rebellion have in mind, and I was so pleased to see this one.
Yeah, I think they've done really well.
So there are a number of articles as the story developed, and the next one is titled "McDonald's Protest, Menu Shortages Reported Across the UK and Arrests Made." Last weekend, around 100 Animal Rebellion campaigners held a protest, successfully shutting down the 4 distribution centres supplying UK McDonald's chains across the country. Really good job. So far, it's led to national shortages at the fast food chain, in line with the protesters' demand that it go completely plant-based by 2025. However, police have since arrested 14 of the animal rights advocates, according to The Telegraph. The advocates constructed giant structures at the centres in Basingstoke, Coventry, Hemel Hempstead and Haywood. This was part of an act of non-violent civil disobedience to protest the chain's mammoth meat sales. McDonald's is one of the biggest symbols of the animal agriculture industry, which, as we know, is destroying the planet, one of the protesters proclaimed. Some of the arrests made were on suspicion of criminal damage, aggravated trespass and intimidating behaviour, the Telegraph reports.
Yeah. Gosh, there's so much in that, isn't there? I mean, criminal behaviour. You're talking about McDonald's here. Do you want to look at their criminal behaviour? Oh, sorry, everything they're doing is technically, well, not everything, but most of what they're doing is technically legal.
Yeah.
Yeah, well.
What do you think that they're doing that isn't legal?
I'm sure there'd be, exploitation of workers and in whatever areas, that they're accessing their products from. There'd be that kind of thing.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Human rights abuses.
Yeah.
However, the group revealed on its Twitter account that the rebels have now been released. In a tweet, they said, "This is direct action and it doesn't end today. Keep the momentum up. Let's think big and brainstorm." According to Hertz Live, 6 of the arrested protesters will appear at St Albans Magistrates Court in July. Another report revealed a handful of protesters will appear in court in Basingstoke next month.
I was going to say, 14's not a lot to be arrested. That's actually really good.
Yeah.
It's considering what they're doing and how long this has gone on for.
Yes.
It's good effort.
Yeah, and a huge thank you to those activists that have made that personal sacrifice.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, we've been around arrests a lot at the mass actions that we go to, as we said, Animal Rebellion in London. I'm thinking also at the Animal Liberation Conference in California on a couple of occasions.
Yeah.
It's a massive sort of. It is a personal sacrifice. There's a huge inconvenience, you know. Sometimes they can go without food and water for long periods of time, or they can have trouble getting vegan food. I know in one case, an fellow activist friend of ours was saying, you know, we got bread, like just literally just a slice of bread because it was vegan.
It's not fun. It's not fun.
It's not fun, you know.
And so to go through it is, kudos.
Yeah, there might be fines involved.
Yeah, of course. And there's the uncertainty. Like, you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know how they're going to treat you. You don't know what the ramifications are going to be. Is it just a fine? Are you going to have to do some community service? Or is it going to be something on your record? You know, you don't know technically what's going to happen.
Yeah.
So...
Following the countrywide action over the weekend, McDonald's is experiencing shortages in some of its restaurants. Animal Rebellion shared an image of a sign which appears to be from one of the chain's restaurants. It reads, "We are temporarily experiencing a shortage of some ingredients. Consequently, some menu items might be temporarily unavailable or ingredients may be missing.
Fantastic.
We apologise in advance to any customers impacted and thank you for your patience."
Well, I mean, that's exactly what they intended to happen, exactly what's happening. It's so good.
Fantastic. Moreover, this is only the beginning. The group, which is connected to Extinction Rebellion, claims.
I love they've just included a picture of their tweet, and Animal Rebellion tweeted, "Oops, I did it again. You've been #McDisrupted."
Fantastic.
It's great.
And #MacDestruction, I like that.
Yes, yeah.
The story developed further. The next news article is titled, "Piers Morgan wants to buy 1,000 Big Macs after McDonald's faces calls to go plant-based."
Of course he does. Of course he does.
Everyone's favourite anti-vegan in the UK. Piers Morgan says he wants to buy 1,000 Big Macs after McDonald's faces calls to go plant-based. The fast food giant is under pressure to ditch animal products and commit to a 100% vegan menu by 2025. Last week, distribution centre supplier McDonald's shut down in the UK following a series of demonstrations by Animal Rebellion campaigners. This resulted in menu shortages being reported across the country and the alleged arrest of 14 protesters. Responding to the campaign, controversial TV personality Piers Morgan tweeted, "This makes me want to buy 1,000 Big Macs tomorrow." However...
Isn't he embarrassed to be him? Like, does he...
You're looking at it through your perspective and your lens.
But does he not read anything? Does he really not care at all?
I think it's just... Look,
what is it?
Well, he's paid to be controversial, and this is... I think it's low-hanging fruit for him. And he's become known and developed a bit of a reputation of having a dig at vegans.
Yeah, sure. But do you realise when you set the vegan thing aside, like what you're actually saying and what you're doing, and do you agree with your actions and with the consequences those actions have? Like, do you really have no moral compass whatsoever?
No, he doesn't.
It's extraordinary. He's so embarrassed. I'd wake up every day and go, what the hell am I doing?
Oh, he's wealthy, he's popular, ratings are probably good.
Well, he left the show, didn't he?
Oh, did he?
Yeah,
oh, yeah.
He walked off because of Meghan Markle. Markle? What's her name? We don't follow anything.
Markle, I think
Markle.
Yeah, but no, he's still... I think he looks...
No, he's off. He left.
Is he?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh, right, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think he's back. Correct me if I'm wrong, people. I don't know.
Right, so maybe this is, he's trying to still be relevant.
To who? Who's listening? Who's watching him? We are, I guess.
And look, hey, 99% of the world agrees with him, if you like.
Yeah.
They're still exploiting animals as
yeah.
well, so... However, this isn't the first time Morgan has hit out at vegans. Last year, the former Good Morning Britain host, there you go, slammed McDonald's after it announced the trial of its McPlant range. Morgan branded the line total nonsense and said the McPlant burger should be called someone else. Someone else or something else? The McPlant, the meat-free range, it's obviously total nonsense, he said. Look it up in the dictionary. A burger is a meat product, so is a sausage. Why do vegans want to use our language? So he's very much... capitalising on the us versus them.
Yeah.
His then co-host, Susanna Reid, replied, "A veggie burger is a burger. It's a burger. Just because it doesn't have meat in it, it's still a burger."
Yeah. Well, that's another topic. We've covered all that stuff before, haven't we?
We have.
Yeah, well, there you go. I don't know. What else do you say about this guy?
Well, I think it's good.
It's
you
always
need
good.
anti-vegans to bring it to the headlines, to the masses, so then a debate can be started.
Of course, of course.
Very
does he know that he can't actually access 1,000 Big Macs right now anyway?
Yeah, that's
Gotcha.
Good one. The story continued to develop. Another news article read, protesters occupy London McDonald's outlets as chain urged to go plant-based. A sit-in protest took place on Sunday, May the 30th, in the bustling West End in central London. Branded a McSit-in, the action involved protesters gathering to eat vegan-packed lunches together. As a result, Animal Rebellion confirmed all outlets in the area closed down indoor seating. They branded it McSelf-Destruction. I love it. Good job, guys. Good job.
Excellent.
At the time of writing, protesters revealed they had occupied almost all outdoor seating in Leicester Square, which we've actually, that's where we had a cube in Leicester Square.
How did they manage to get all the tables?
They did well, didn't they?
They did.
They did really, really well. In a statement on Instagram, the group added, rebels have taken to McDonald's restaurants in London for our McSit-in. We are letting McDonald's know that last week's distribution centre blockade was just the beginning. We will continue to disrupt business as usual for them until we get to speak to the CEO and our demands are met. The group, which is run in solidarity with Extinction Rebellion, put a call out on Twitter for protesters to join them in occupying the store. Their plan was to carry out sit-ins and calmly sit down with a vegan packed lunch together. Grab some friends, read the action plan, have a non-violence practice, and head out to a Macca's near you, they announced online.
Love it.
It's really good,
It's
isn't it?
good. And just to add to this is what I found online this morning. I just took a screenshot on my phone. Okay, so this was on our feed 7 hours ago from when we woke up. Anyway, it happened today. We have occupied all seating on the ground floor at McDonald's Oxford Street. Okay, so...
Another central location, I believe.
They went on to say London, Manchester, Brighton, Stoke, McSittings are happening all over the country today.
Fantastic.
So they've expanded, so that's great. And I loved the photos. Again, just people sitting there really peacefully with their Tupperware containers eating vegan food. It's non-violent. There's nothing threatening about what they're doing to the average person walking by. It's threatening to the organisation, to McDonald's, to the business as usual model, but it's not threatening to, say, a family that was in there at the time with the kids buying their stupid Happy Meals or whatever they are.
Exactly.
You know, they're not going to be like, oh my gosh, you know, we're all under attack and this is really violent, I'm really scared. No. It was just something that anyone can participate in, and that's the beauty of this approach. So I just think it's fantastic. And I was going to say, the beauty of this kind of disruption is that the message is not, we're going to shut McDonald's down and they're never going to operate again, because I think that's extremely unrealistic, and that's what we've said on the show for a long time now. You know, these organisations are not just going to disappear. So what's the next best thing? Okay, you can stick around, but you have to go plant-based.
And that's fantastic, because they're so widespread that if they were to adopt a plant-based menu, they have just immediately made plant-based food so much more readily available, convenient to so many people worldwide. I mean,
they should be considered like an aid to the cause, you know, because I know, like, ideally we'd want a totally different system, and we're thinking... well, when I say we, I guess a lot of people, a lot of vegans ideally would be thinking of something that doesn't have massive organisations. And sure, the production of plant-based food on that industrial scale is not ideal either.
And there are still going to be probably issues with workers' wages and what have you.
Yeah, exactly.
And conditions.
But the reality is that we don't live in that world, and it's very unlikely that we're ever going to have something like that. Personally, I just don't think humans are evolved enough to live like that. So, whilst we've got this current structure and we have all these organisations, well, we, I think, as a movement, should be looking at them as aids rather than as obstacles that we need to get out of the way. Use them as an aid to, as you said, make plant-based food more accessible. I mean, how brilliant would that be if every McDonald's on the planet, which there are, I don't know, must be millions,
too many, exactly.
Right? Imagine if they were all plant-based. That's a hell of a lot of plant food instead of animal food being sold. So we don't have to, you know, get rid of all of them. We just have to make them useful to the cause.
Yes, a great perspective, very important one to share. And I'd like to hear from our listeners. Have they been aware of this story that's been unfolding over the course of a few weeks?
Yeah.
These protests by Animal Rebellion. Have you been involved yourself? Would you get involved if something like that was in your area? Is it something that you consider organising? Have you ever heard of the sit-in movement before?
Yeah.
Let us know your thoughts.
Yeah, and two things that I also wanted to add there. I think this kind of sit-in and this kind of demand to McDonald's, which is to go plant-based, it would be a lot better. I'm thinking if I was McDonald's management, I would be happier to hear that demand than we want you to shut down altogether.
Yes.
Because what Animal Rebellion is saying is you can exist and you can still make money.
Yes.
Everything is, I don't want to say business as usual, but it can be in a plant-based version.
Yes.
So you don't have to lose your billions of dollars and shut down all your restaurants. Just change the product line.
Exactly.
It's a win-win. And
Yes.
if McDonald's was smart enough, they'd wake up to that reality that this is the future, this is the only way we can do it, and they'd be on board.
Yes. And I just love how this forces the conversation. So
Yeah.
because they're not demanding them to shut down, patrons who are frequenting McDonald's during these sit-ins by Animal Rebellion, they're forced to consider the proposal being put forth by the protesters. So they're looking and they're going, okay, so I don't want to shut down. They're saying plant-based. Okay, well, what do I know about plant-based? Oh, there's been a lot about it in the media over the last bit. I see it on my social media feeds. I've got this friend or I've got that family member. Yeah, okay, I've heard of the arguments, health, environment, ethics. Right, where do I stand on that? Basically, these are all the things that people can start to think about and have conversations about. And then it goes from there, doesn't it?
Yeah, and also, as you said, conversations. Also, Animal Rebellion wants to have a conversation with the McDonald's CEO.
Yes.
So there's something to talk about here.
Yeah.
Whereas if you just say, shut down, we want you out, then
seem very,
the CEO is going to be like, you've got to be kidding me.
Yeah.
Obviously, we're not doing it. We're not going anywhere.
It seems extreme and inflexible.
Yeah, they're not going to shut down. But have a conversation about the future direction of this restaurant and what you're serving. Well, that's something to actually discuss. It's more realistic.
And realistic, yeah.
Exactly. And finally, I wanted to say, the sitting movement has been around for decades, and we'll link some videos that we've watched many years ago of the sitting movement in the 60s?
Yeah. The early 60s in North Carolina in particular.
Yeah, and they were violent, not because of the activists, but the oppressors. What they did, how they reacted to the activists were, oh gosh, really awful. It's hard to watch, but look at the difference from that time to what's happening right now. There hasn't been that reaction, that violent opposition yet. Who knows if this story is going to continue to develop and if people will start to get a bit hot under the collar. I don't know, but so far it looks very peaceful.
That's exactly what I was thinking as well. And I'd like to ask our listeners, did you see anything on social media that perhaps a protester who was present took on their Instagram story or Facebook story of some people getting retaliation? Essentially. Let us know and send us links if you've got them.
Maybe we missed something, but from what we've seen so far, it looks like it's been well received. Anyway, time will tell.
Yeah.
Interesting story, isn't it?
Definitely.
I really, really like how they've gone about this. So far we've got hacking and sit-ins.
Yeah, so cyber disruption and traditional non-violent civil disobedient disruption.
Yeah, very good.
Continuing the theme of disruption, moving to food tech-driven disruption, an article titled Cell-Based Agriculture Program Launched by Spanish Dairy Manufacturer was a headline that caught my eye. Spanish dairy manufacturer Pascual has announced the first ever global incubation program to expand projects within the cell-based dairy market. Milk Cubator will be run by the company's new corporate venture unit. Moreover, it hopes to support startups that disrupt the dairy value chain, and it will offer an alternative to dairy products using cellular agriculture. The program, which is run in partnership with food tech firm Eatable Adventures, launches this month, and it will soon make selections from a host of cell-based dairy startups. This will allow smaller companies and entrepreneurs to test their products in research and development facilities. Pascual's goal is to enrol 10 startups that use fermentation and cell-based technology. If successful, the startups will begin the chance of being incorporated into Pascual's future business operations.
Nice.
Director of Innovation Gabriel Torres Pascual says the inspiration comes from an innovative spirit in genes within the family-owned business. In a statement sent to Plant-Based News, Gabrielle said, "It comes from the attitude that my grandfather instilled in us of being non-conformist. This involves dreaming big and daring to take risks."
Geez, that's a very progressive grandfather. I'm just thinking about the story I told about my grandfather was it the last episode or the one before that?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah,
wow.
You're right. We really are all different, aren't we?
Yeah.
Pasquale added, "This is how Pasquale Innoventures was born, with a long-term vision and the purpose of giving the best for the future of food. The program's launch comes after the think tank Rethink X predicted a collapse of the meat and dairy industries by 2030.
2030?
Yeah, this is what I want to talk about in a moment.
Jeez.
Secondly, it is set to follow a continued boom in plant-based protein." Yeah, so you just said 2030, right?
Yeah.
And that's what I thought when I read it, because it's only 9 years away.
Yeah.
Right, so that's like around the corner. I'm like, okay, I've got to check out this report because I didn't see it.
Yeah.
So I located that Rethink X news report.
Okay.
I'm going to read this report because when I read it, you might recall I was making exclamations in the kitchen as you were elsewhere in the house.
Yeah, you exactly what was happening. You're like, oh my gosh, oh wow, oh this. I'm like, what's going on? And you're like, we'll talk about it in the podcast. No spoilers.
Yeah, I got super inspired and enthusiastic and hopeful.
You were so hyped. I'm like, this is the most hopeful I've seen you in years. So what's going on?
So I want to share that with our audience,
yes,
right?
and with me. I have no idea.
Let's do this.
Very excited, Luca.
The fastest, deepest, most consequential disruption of food and agriculture in history, driven by technology and new business models, is underway. By 2030, modern food products will be higher quality and cost less than half the price of the animal-derived foods they replace. The dairy and cattle industries will have collapsed, and the rest of the livestock industry will follow. That's according to a new report, Rethinking Food and Agriculture 2020 to 2030, the second domestication of plants and animals, the disruption of the cow, and the collapse of industrial livestock farming, released by Rethink X, an independent think tank that analyses and forecasts the scope, speed, and scale of technology-driven disruption and its implications across society.
Whoa! Let's just take that in. That is a huge statement.
Isn't it?
Really?
Yeah.
It's okay. I'm speechless for once. Wow. That's extraordinary. They really think that's all going to happen in 9 years?
Let's keep reading.
Oh, no wonder you were so excited.
I know. This is primarily a protein disruption driven by economics, said Tony Sieber, Rethink X co-founder and report co-author.
That is brilliant. This is primarily a protein disruption driven by economics.
Isn't it beautiful?
I love that. That summarizes what it is. We're talking about a protein, and it's only in circulation to the degree that it is because of economics, because of money. So you disrupt that, or you replace that, and it's fixed. We're fixed it.
That's good, isn't it?
Wow.
This is not one disruption, but many in parallel, with each overlapping, reinforcing and accelerating the others.
Yeah.
Technology we call precision fermentation and a new production model called food as software are dramatically driving down the costs and driving up the quality of modern proteins, said report co-author Catherine Tubb. The industrial livestock industry is one of the oldest, largest and most inefficient food production systems in the world.
Yeah.
Modern ingredients and the foods are about 10 times more efficient across the board, from land and water use to feedstock consumption and energy use. Precision fermentation, or PF, is a process that enables the programming of microorganisms to produce almost any complex organic molecule. This reminds me very much of the interview we did with Perfect Day Foods' Vice President of Corporate Communication.
Yes.
Nikki Briggs.
Are they talking about doing the same thing that Perfect Day Foods are, where they're creating animal products, like literally without the animals, but it's still an animal product, it's not a plant-based product?
So that's what
it
precision fermentation is, and then the cell-based is different again. The report's on both here. Mm-hmm. Its costs are dropping exponentially because of rapid improvements in underlying biological and information technologies. The cost to produce a single molecule using PF has fallen from $1 million per kilogram in 2000 to about $100 today.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So in 21 years, we've come a long way, haven't we?
Yeah.
Assuming existing technologies and using well-established cost curves, the report projects that these costs will fall below $10 per kilogram by 2025, and that these proteins will be 5 times cheaper than traditional animal proteins by 2030, and 10 times cheaper by 2035.
And then we're done.
And
then we're done. Then we can retire.
Well, look, if I'm to play devil's advocate, even if this all comes out, obviously that doesn't take care of animal rights and animal liberation in totality.
I know, yeah. Clothing, entertainment, testing, etc.
But we have to start here with the biggest.
These are the big numbers.
Yeah, food. That's where the most number of animals, of course. So by 2030, modern food products will cost less than half as much to produce as the animal-derived products they replace. At the same time, this new production system has the potential to spur competition and fast iteration of products that are ever cheaper and ever better, more nutritious, healthier, better tasting, more convenient and more varied, as long as open markets and nutritional standards are protected.
Yeah, right. Geez, this is such, I hope that it's true. I can't believe it in my everyday real life. For example, when we're at Coles, the supermarket, the other day, they had the Beyond Meat meatballs for the first time, and they were on special. Gosh, we got them for what was it, $6 or $7?
Yes.
But they're going
Australian,
but they're selling for full price is $15 Australian.
Yes.
That's very expensive.
Yes.
And nobody in the animal meat section is paying that much for meatballs.
No.
So I was so pleased to see that option there, and yet I was so disheartened by the fact that, geez, even you and I are waiting for them to go on special. You know, when we try to buy as much plant-based products as possible to boost the demand. But I'm like, $15 for 12 meatballs? Oh, that's a lot. You know?
It's that bittersweet feeling of, oh, wow, they're available, fantastic, in a major national supermarket chain.
Yeah.
Oh, but they're so expensive.
Exactly.
And so it makes it, so limited.
Yeah.
But this is really...
So that's why, when I see that, I'm like, wow, they're really going to cut prices to be less than what animal products are worth in such a short time.
I know, but again, well, what they're saying is they've given that example. If it was $1 million a kilogram in 2000, and now it's under $100 today, and again...
Below 10 by 2025, so what's that, 4 years?
Yeah, so the point is we've got exponential change happening with technology. So just because it took 21 years to go from $1 million to $10 doesn't mean it's going to take another 21 years to go from $10 to being cheaper than animal products, because the rate of change is ever faster.
Yeah. It makes sense. I hope that
it's
true. Don't get my hopes up, people.
Let's keep going. The report details the way different parts of the cow, collagen, milk, meat and leather, and the markets they serve will be disrupted separately and concurrently by different technologies and business model innovations that overlap, reinforce and accelerate each other. The authors refer to this disruption as death by 1,000 cuts.
I love it. Oh my goodness, that is so awesome. That is so awesome.
It reminded me of the movie Spiral with Chris Rock that we saw not that long ago.
Yeah,
where
which was awful.
There was a scene where a guy died by death by 1,000 cuts, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was really bad. It was traumatizing.
But a good analogy for this, isn't it?
Absolutely. That's what they're calling the future of the industry. Perfect.
Isn't it good?
Oh my goodness.
As product after product that comes from cows faces competition from cheaper, higher quality modern foods, demand for cow products will decrease, triggering a death spiral of increasing prices for the industrial livestock industry, decreasing demand and reversing economies of scale. The key to understanding the disruption of the cow is that PF only needs to disrupt 3.3% of the milk bottle, the key functional proteins, to bring about the collapse of the entire cow milk industry. This is a B2B or business-to-business disruption, not just a simple one-for-one substitution of end products, and does not hinge on changing human behaviour, said Sieber. So, you know how we say you go into the supermarket and it's as simple as moving your hand from the left of cow-based milk to the right to plant-based milk. They're not talking about we're not relying on this.
Yeah.
It's a business-to-business disruption.
So it's not consumer choices that's going to influence this change. It's that the businesses are going to affect businesses. Like it's internal. It's higher up than by the time it reaches the consumer.
Yeah, it seems like it's at an industry level here.
Okay.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Because technology is going to make the prices of plant-based equivalents cheaper. So therefore the customer is no longer really, it's a no-brainer choice at the supermarket.
Yes.
And it's going to make it too costly for animal agriculture to continue with their current operating model because they won't be able to compete on a cost basis with the plant-based equivalents that have been driven by technology. So it's at that level rather than at the consumer level.
That's very interesting. It's kind of, I don't want to say the opposite, but it definitely goes counter to what so many of us have been saying and thinking for so long, which is change the consumer's purchasing choices, and that's going to obviously impact what that company is producing. I mean, it's obviously both, but this is different. This is like it's coming internally or from above.
Yeah, it's like top down rather than down up.
Down up, yeah. And hey, you do them both at the same time,
there you go.
And that's even better, isn't it? So
exactly.
It's a win-win.
PF proteins are already being produced commercially, costs are decreasing exponentially, while quality and variety increase exponentially. Industrial cattle farming industry will collapse long before we see modern technologies produce the perfect cellular steak at a competitive price.
Oh, nice. Okay. Because that's what we've been complaining about, haven't we? That, I remember that we spoke about this like maybe 2 episodes ago or whatever it was when we went to a restaurant with my parents and we ordered that vegan steak, and it was terrible because it was like a big burger patty. You know, it tasted good, but it was nothing like a steak. And we're like, oh, we're so depressed. We're so far off from having a legit plant-based equivalent to a animal steak, you know, for carnists. But they're saying that we don't even need to wait for all of that technology to meet that expectation. That's something, because I was seriously worried after we had that lunch. I just felt so demoralised. I felt really, really shitty.
Yes.
Like we're never going to get there, but this is, I can see why you're so excited when you were reading this article the other week. You've got me hooked.
Good. Yeah. I'll continue. The report analyses the way technology and new models of production flip the current food production system on its head. Instead of growing a whole cow to break it down into products, PF designs and customises individual molecules to build products. Development is done in a manner similar to the software industry. Companies and individuals will build components within layers of the equivalent of a software stack that can be used according to individual needs. The food developer is like an app developer, using the stack that is most appropriate according to market needs. This is fascinating.
It is.
This is the future, people.
It's so over my head. Like, I wish I was smart enough to be able to create stuff like this. I'm barely being able to understand what they're talking about. Like, I find it fascinating how different brains create just world-changing things. It's extraordinary. I'm so happy that there are people out there that can think like this and create stuff like this.
Yeah, and I've said it before, I'll say it again. Joaquin Phoenix referred to it in his Best Actor Oscar acceptance speech a couple of years back, where he was saying, at our best, human beings, we're so innovative, so creative. This is what he's talking about. We have the abilities.
We can do so much better. We can do so good. Yeah.
Continuing on, all aspects of the food as software model are distributed, building biological parts databases, biobricks, designing molecules, ingredients, designing microorganisms to produce these molecules via PF, and designing molecular cookbooks to integrate them into end-user products. Like craft breweries, food producers will produce food locally using locally grown feedstock. But with the new food as software system, they will download microorganism designs, protein designs, and molecular cookbooks from global databases.
Wow, that's... It sounds very full on, doesn't it? It sounds very futuristic and AI. But
it's happening.
I know.
There are actually companies doing this.
Yeah, it's extraordinary. Part of me is...
Still skeptical?
Yeah, well, I was going to say more like... overwhelmed and saddened that we've been forced to go to this degree. Like, whatever happened to just planting some seeds and pulling your potatoes out of the ground? Do you know what I mean? Like the basics and just living off the earth. It sounds absolutely extraordinary, fascinating, brilliant, and terrifying at the same time. Like, is all our food going to be produced in this way? Well, not all of it, obviously, but I think a large degree will be, simply because that's the way the industry is going, and there are so many people on the planet, and the soil's this and that, and the climate's this and that, and it's not reliable, blah, blah, blah. It's just amazing to think of how humans started out, basically, and to where where we got to and where we're heading.
It's interesting, isn't it?
Interesting is, one word.
One
It's
word.
a bit scary, I think. I don't know, how do people feel? Like when you read this, do you just go... Oh, I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm absolutely stoked in terms of bringing down animal agriculture. At the same time, I'm like, I don't know, just carrots and peas and rice and beans. I don't know.
I hear what you're saying, and to play devil's advocate, of course, we and our diets incorporate a lot of plant-based meat, dairies.
Yeah.
I was going to say eggs, but no. Products.
Yeah.
So, are you sad about your current diet?
No, I'm not. I'm just... Yeah, no, don't worry.
No, I do know.
I
I do know what you're saying. Like,
it just sounds so complicated. Like, it sounds like we're so far removed from the very basics of how maybe we were supposed to live. But who knows how we were supposed to live? I don't know. It's just like no other animal on the planet has to create this kind of thing to feed themselves. All other animals are just...
I know what you're saying. I hear you loud and clear.
Yeah. It's weird, basically. Humans are weird.
Yeah, we are weird. Good one.
I don't know. What do our listeners think? Do you think we're weird as a species?
Yeah, you're right.
How do you feel about all of this? Like I said, I'm totally torn. I'm so happy because it's the future and it's going to fix a lot of the problems that animals face. At the same time, I'm like, what?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. I hear you, and yet my enthusiasm and excitement and hope and euphoria that I'm feeling at the potential of liberating so many billions of animals from suffering for me far outweighs any feelings of sadness that, oh my God, look at where we've evolved as a species.
Yeah,
we've had to do this to eat. This is so weird. Like I've got both going on, but one feeling is significantly
I agree
more
with
weighted
you.
than the other.
I agree with you.
Highlights of the report findings include, by 2030, the number of cows in the US will have fallen by 50%.
Oh.
At current prices, revenues of the US beef and dairy industry and their suppliers, which together exceed $400 billion today, will decline by at least 50%.
That's huge!
By 2030, the market for ground beef by volume will have shrunk by 70%, steak market by 30%, and dairy market by almost 90%.
Wow.
And I guess that is in line with what we're seeing today. Ground beef, so you can get a lot of plant-based ground beef products.
Definitely.
Steaks, a lot harder to come by, and dairy, heaps of plant-based options. So those percentages are kind of in alignment with what we're already seeing.
Correct.
The markets for other cow products, leather, collagen, etc., are likely to decline more than 90%. Altogether, demand for cow products will fall by more than 50%.
That's brilliant. By 2030. So in 9 years, 50%. Wow.
By 2030, the US dairy and cattle industry will have collapsed. Conventional farming production costs will double.
Now, are they saying, okay, nothing's guaranteed, but is this pretty much this is what's going to happen, or is this what they're hoping for?
We're getting to that.
Okay.
We're going to get to that.
I don't know now.
I know. By 2035, US demand for beef and dairy products will be down by nearly 90%, leaving only local specialty farms in operation. Industrial farmland values will collapse by 40 to 80%. The volume of crops needed to feed cattle in the US will fall by 50% from 155 million tonnes in 2018 to 80 million tonnes in 2030, causing cattle feed production revenues to fall by more than 50% from 60 billion in 2019 to less than 30 billion in 2030.
Yeah, nice. I mean, 30 billion, it's still a hell of a lot of money.
Yeah.
But it's significantly less.
Yeah. Other livestock industries will suffer similar disruptions, and the knock-on effects for crop farmers and businesses throughout the value chain will be severe. That report goes on into many more details about different facets, different statistics, etc., etc. Very interesting read. We're going to link that in the show notes. I'm just going to quickly flip over to an article that reports on this report.
Yeah.
I actually was wondering when was the report released because I hadn't been aware of it.
Yeah.
And actually it came out in September of 2019.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
so almost 2 years ago.
Gosh, it didn't get much traction.
No.
As you said, we didn't hear about it and we kind of follow a lot of vegan news. Let us know if you had heard of this before.
Yeah.
And we missed it.
Well, I know we were on tour at the time and probably were oblivious to everything at that point other than the tour. It was so intense. So that's probably how we missed it.
Yeah.
So in that article, which of course talks about that report in detail, there's one part I want to pick up on. So it says, so what do industry stakeholders and other commentators make of these bold predictions? Well, A managing partner at Unovus Partners New Crop Capital Venture Fund, which has invested in companies in plant-based, cell-cultured or cultivated meat and proteins produced by microbial fermentation, so there's a lot going on in that space,
Yes.
said no one can predict with certainty what the food system will be like in 2030 or 2035, but said all three approaches had the potential to be disruptive. I don't believe in a winner-takes-all, whether it's companies or sources of protein or technologies. I also think geographically things will play out differently depending on consumer tastes and culinary heritage, he said, noting that much will also depend on infrastructure, purchasing power and crop availability. But what's very exciting is that big players are making bold strategic decisions to get into this space. It is also significant that some of the world's biggest meat companies, which have invested in plant-based and cell-cultured meat, are increasingly describing themselves as protein companies, he added.
Yes.
Something we've spoken about before, yeah?
That's so important, that it's not a meat company, it's a protein company. Because that's, as you know, we've discussed before and was mentioned earlier on in this discussion, the product, they're selling protein.
Yeah.
It's a protein.
Yeah.
That's the push.
That's how Beyond Meat has also positioned themselves,
Yes.
and how a lot of these meat companies are repositioning themselves. Just another part of the article to comment on. The North American Meat Institute did not respond to requests for comment, but the National Milk Producers Federation said the authors were living in a vegan fantasy land.
Oh, you wish, baby. I mean, the fact that that's come from the dairy industry, who we know are going to be the first to fall. They are the biggest hit industry thus far. You're living in milk fantasy land, mate.
Yeah.
Cow fantasy land.
Yeah.
Get over it.
A spokesman added, this study will be a millstone around the neck of the fake foods lobby.
Oh, they have to though, don't they? The fact that they went after it so hard and used that kind of language lets you know that they're absolutely shitting their pants. They know it's over, and now they're just like trying to take out as many as they can as they're on their way out.
Yeah.
You know?
And they go on, and I'll link that Food Navigator article as well.
But interesting that they called it a vegan fantasy land.
Because the word vegan is not mentioned in the report
At all. It's so interesting that they've made that connection. I'm glad that they have. Good.
Yeah.
What it lets people know is vegan's the future, baby.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
And if you're against animal exploitation, using ridiculous amount of resources on this planet that we don't have enough of, if you're against destroying the climate, if you're against all these other things, that's what vegan is?
Yeah.
So what's the opposite to that?
Pro-abuse and exploitation of people, animals, and the planet. Yeah.
Exactly. That's dairy. That's meat. That's animal agriculture.
Yeah.
Thanks for pointing that out, dairy industry.
Yeah.
You can call it a fantasy land if you like, or we could just call it the future.
Yeah. If that's a fantasy land, well, the animals, people, and the planet must currently be living through a real-life horror film.
Yeah. Perfect. God, I'd love to sit down and have a one-on-one with these guys. I'd love to just strap them up in a chair, sticky tape their mouth shut and just blast them. That's my fantasy land.
I love it. So I was very, as you know, enthusiastic, excited, hopeful after reading that report. But then I started to think, well, of course, predictions are typically only as good as the people reporting and making those predictions. So I'm like, well, who is this think tank? Yeah. So I wanted to look into them a bit more, and I thought I'd share this because I know a lot of listeners will also be thinking similarly. It's all very well to say and predict these things, but kind of how certain can we be, or how likely are these
That's
things?
what I was thinking, especially because we haven't heard too much of this in the last, since 2019?
Yeah.
So, okay, tell us. Is it good news, Luca?
Well, I think so. So I'm reading now from a page on RethinkX's website called Getting It Right. Mainstream analysts produce linear forecasts based on mechanistic and siloed methodology that does not account for the complex, adaptive systems of the economy and society. As a result, they routinely underestimate improvements in the cost and capabilities of technologies, the speed of their adoption, and the rapid speed of collapse of incumbents and the broader implications of disruption. The CIBA Technology Disruption Framework takes a systems approach to analyse the market forces triggered by technology convergence, business model innovation, product innovation, and exponential improvements in both cost and capabilities. It captures the complex processes that drive a pattern of rapid, non-linear change. This is that exponential growth and change that I was talking about earlier. As a result, Rethink X co-founders Tony Seba and James Arbib have been consistently more accurate than mainstream analysts in predicting the speed and scale of technological disruption.
Okay.
And so they give some examples.
Yeah.
To demonstrate the power of the methodology, in 2005, Tony put together a virtual winners-take-all stock portfolio of 15 companies investing and implementing disruptive technologies and business models. As of February 2020, so 15 years later, the portfolio has since risen by 2,500%, or 25% a year, massively outperforming the market. Over the same period, the Dow Jones Industrial Average rose 296%, 10% a year, while the NASDAQ rose 437%, 12% a year. The average US equity fund returned 180%, or 7% a year.
That's something. That's something. The numbers don't lie. So then basically he knows what he's talking about.
They know what their methodology is seemingly more accurate at predicting things in this space than traditional market analysts. In 2010, Rethink X forecast that by 2020, the cost of generating solar PV energy would drop to 3 to 5 cents per kilowatt hour. At the time, the cost was 15 cents per kilowatt hour. The cost today is less than 4 cents per kilowatt hour.
Wow.
The same year, the International Energy Agency forecast a cost of 7 cents per kilowatt hour by 2030.
Okay, so they're bang on.
They are. In 2010, the Rethink X think tank forecast that by 2020, the cost of lithium-ion batteries would drop to $200 per kilowatt hour or below. The cost at the time was 1,100 kilowatt hours. Today, they cost approximately $150 per kilowatt hour.
Okay.
Mainstream analysts projected much higher costs. For example, in 2013, the consultant PwC, or PricewaterhouseCoopers, forecast a cost of $300 in 2020. So again, they're giving examples of how much more accurately they've been able to predict things than traditional market analysts or mainstream market analysts.
That is quite extraordinary. And it goes on to give other examples, don't they? Yeah.
Yeah, about the energy sector and also, I think, fossil fuels and electric cars and what have you.
It's very impressive. I mean, that's decent.
Yeah.
Really. So if their predictions are on track with all these other examples and it carries over to what they're talking about in terms of food technology and animal agriculture, that is the game changer.
Absolutely.
Right there.
Yeah. So
that is extraordinary.
Those previous examples, and as we said, there are a couple more, and we're going to put a link to those in the show notes for you to read more, are very promising. Now, of course, we heard something the other day that there was an analyst who correctly predicted that there would be the global economic financial crisis in 2008, and there weren't many other analysts who had done so. And so you'd think, oh, well, we better continue to listen to that analyst's future predictions. And apparently that particular analyst has got almost every other prediction they've made since that time wrong. So, but of course that was one example, whereas there have been multiple examples that Rethink X has listed there on their website of where they've been much more accurate at predicting multiple things in this space.
They've got credibility. And the thing is, like, you can kind of see it happening in the industry. It's just that I didn't think it was going to happen so soon.
Yeah.
So I'm, when I read or when you read this and I'm listening to this technology, it sounds so futuristic. I'm thinking like maybe we're going to be in our 80s, maybe it's past our lifetime, whatever. If we even get to 80, who knows? But for it to be in 9 years or thereabouts, that is very soon, technically, in the scheme of things.
Yeah. I do know, and I just want to kind of even break it down to the other, like, small micro stuff. So, for example, when you're watching a television show now that's 10 years old, it's funny, you look at it and you can kind of tell that was made 10 years ago and not today.
Yeah.
Now, 10 years is the same kind of time frame we're talking about. And I know that's not the best example in the world, but you can also think about other things. So 10 years ago, you and I didn't own a smartphone. Yes, they existed, but we didn't own one. And now we live on the device, essentially. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So, and again, the rate of change in the next 10 years will be faster than the rate of change in the last 10 years because technology is changing things exponentially.
Yeah.
So I know whilst things might be difficult to conceive today, you just got to think about those things and the rate of change we've seen already, and therefore, it makes it more plausible about what we could see going forward.
Which is, I tell you what, if that happens, oh my goodness, could you imagine?
Yeah.
Could you imagine?
Yeah, I know.
I mean, that's just like, that is a vegan fantasy land, isn't it?
Yeah.
But for real.
Yeah. But again, it's not driven by ethics. Of course, we wish it would as animal rights activists and advocates, but it's not going to be.
But that's what we've always said. Yeah. The world was never going to change because they actually care about animals.
Sadly not.
It's always going to come from technology. And why has this happened? Because it makes more financial sense. It makes more sense in terms of the environment. It makes more sense in terms of
new and emerging infectious diseases.
Yeah, health risks, etc. It's like it's a win-win-win-win-win. That's why it never makes sense for vegans when you hear all these excuses from carnists and industry. You're like, but that doesn't make sense. Like, look at the big picture.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah. So anyway, look. Ultimately, I wish that it was driven by ethics, but I ultimately don't care what it's driven by, just as long as it stops for the victims.
Exactly.
You know, and sure, as we said, it's not going to stop for all the victims. This is not animal liberation. Animal rights. This is simply crippling the industry and saving the largest numbers of animals from hell, but there's still obviously a lot of work to do with all those other industries that we mentioned before. You know, I think animal testing is going to be one that needs to be shut down like yesterday.
Yeah.
That's just beyond.
Absolutely. And I just think that food will help create a gateway to more easily attack or bring down those, or bring the change that we need to see in those other industries.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
I think so. I mean,
it's the gateway one, I think.
Yeah, probably. I mean, the thing is, we've already got the technology. We don't need to keep testing on animals. So I don't know why they continue to. Is it a money thing? Is it because it's going to be expensive to do those or acquire the technology to do those non-animal testing? I don't know why they continue to use animals, but you'd think, like, I mean, if we can do all this with for food with technology, you'd think we'd be able to do it for testing as well.
Yeah.
So I don't understand.
I think old habits die hard, and I think when a animal testing company has been doing something a certain way for a long period of time, and they put in for government grants, and the government keeps giving them money, there's less incentive for them to change. Incur the cost to change over, even though it would be better cost-wise and obviously for animals in the long run. It's that short-term pain that they're trying to avoid to not disrupt shareholders or make them unhappy, etc.
Definitely, yeah. I always think, you know, okay, I know these people who test on animals don't care, and yet, like, as an employer, if you were head of a company that forced I shouldn't say forced, they employed other people because it is their job, it is their choice to take that job. You employed people to come in and test on animals. Like, why would you be willing to put other human beings in that really traumatizing environment of needing to test on animals? Is it because you don't find it traumatizing? Like, I don't know, does anybody look at that situation, look at that footage, or be there in person and think, oh, this is fine? I don't know. I just find that so hard to wrap my head around. Like, how do they not see that as traumatizing? And how do you think it's okay to pay someone else to do that testing for your products? Do you know what I mean?
I do, and yet I think we all compartmentalise things differently. So, and again, that's the Upton Sinclair quote, it's difficult to get someone to understand something when their paycheck depends on them not understanding it. Basically, money can cause people to compartmentalise what you're seeing as so obvious and so jarring and so...
I know, I get all that. I'm just saying, like, the very first time, if money aside, like...
Well, then there's the desensitization of having done something.
But the first time you've done that.
That happens with farmers in animal ag though too. It's hard to shoot the male calf in the head, but you do it once and it's, you know, it might...
But that's, I don't want to say this, but it's almost easier. Well, Well, it is, because it's very quick compared to torturing an animal and testing on them for years and years and years, and you're doing that daily or every second day. I mean, it's just...
But we're also acutely aware that animals are not properly stunned on the first go every time because of the speed of production.
Yeah, I don't know.
So that happens a lot.
I don't know. I find it so hard to put myself in that position. Even I try to do it objectively, but I mean, you know, sometimes we're at home and there's a dog somewhere in the neighbourhood that yelps all day, but it sounds like a
discomfort.
I think they just, you know, left it home. Basically, there's nothing hurting the dog, but it's an awful sound.
Yeah.
And it just it makes me feel really uncomfortable. And that's not even like, I know that the dog's not being tortured. But imagine being in that room and you hear the screams of the animals as they're being tortured for testing. Like, at what point do you just go, I'm not feeling okay doing this? I just find it incredible that people can go through it. I don't know.
Well, this also reminds me of when slaughterhouse workers, for example, have reported how they've had to view animals.
Yeah, true.
In terms of they have to almost hate the animal in order to be able to do the terrible things that they have to do to the animal in order to be able to psychologically cope. So it's actually psychologically harmful to the employees as well.
Yeah, that's right. And I guess that brings me back to my original point of, as the head of this company that has products that needs to be tested on animals, you are responsible for employing people to basically put them through that trauma of needing them to somehow see animals as evil and the enemy and be able to justify torturing them.
Yeah.
And you're responsible for that because you're paying them to do it.
Sure.
And again, yes, that employee has that choice. I'm going round.
Do you know what that's exactly the same as? Consumers of animal products who buy the products that pay those companies that then pay the wages of the employees to do those things to animals. It's exactly the same. So consumers can do it because everyone else is doing it.
Yeah.
They're not doing it themselves directly. They also don't see the fact that they're supporting it. I'm against animal abuse even though I'm paying for it. It's the same way because
the mental gymnastics are extraordinary.
The CEO is not in that room doing that to animals. They're looking at things from purely objective financial perspective.
It's really scary, isn't it? It's super creepy that we can do that.
Yeah.
And if we can do that to the most vulnerable, then no wonder we can do what we do to each other.
Yes.
It's wow.
Yeah.
Anyway, we kind of digressed there, didn't we?
Not really. It's all related. It's all related.
Yeah. Let us know what you think in the comments on Patreon. You know, can you understand kind of what I'm saying and how I find it so hard to wrap my head around? And where are your thoughts and feelings on this topic?
Yeah, and also let us know, were you aware of that Rethink X report from 2019? What are your thoughts on it? Are you hopeful or are you skeptical or a mixture of both?
Have you seen more mainstream media coverage of this? Because I just feel like, why isn't this being projected a lot more than what it has?
I'm not sure. Again, when it came out, maybe there was more hype around that time, but you and I were on tour and were oblivious to everything. Maybe our listeners can let us know if they can recall back to that period of time around September 2019, whether they recall any news reports about this report.
And I'm saying, like, even now, though, why is it not being discussed now? For example, like we always refer back to Livestock's Long Shadow report from the UN. That was like, what?
2006.
Right, forever ago.
15 years.
And yet this was only 2 years ago, and it seems to, I've never heard anyone refer to it, but this is staggering. These numbers and this prediction is extraordinary. So this should be all over the mainstream.
Yeah, maybe it was because that report, Livestock's Long Shadow, came from the UN, whereas this came from a small independent think tank.
Yeah.
So they don't carry the same weight in terms of...
It's a shame because this is really incredible.
Yeah.
Incredible. Anyway, thank you for finding that. And please, again, if you're listening, which of course you are, if you're listening, that was a stupid thing to say, let us know your thoughts on this report. Our last news story that we want to talk about today is something that we've discussed in many previous episodes, and finally we have a result.
The European Parliament, European Council and the European Commission have rejected Amendment 171, aka the dairy ban.
Yeah.
At this time, EU law already prohibits the use of terms including almond milk or vegan cheese. However, Amendment 171 sought to further tighten the rules. If passed, Descriptors such as yogurt style and cheese alternative could have been banned. Moreover, the legislation aimed to prohibit brands from using packaging styles similar to their animal counterparts, such as butter blocks and milk cartons.
And this is what we discussed previously. We'll link that episode in the notes on Patreon so you can go back and have a listen. That was an extraordinary conversation because we were trying to wrap our head around, so like, what are you going to put your soy milk in if it can't be basically a carton that looks like what cow's milk comes in? What are you going to put it in? A round bag, or like, what does it come in? We thought of like a triangle. It just, where do you go with that? It was just ridiculous.
Science-based claims that compared vegan foods to animal products, aka half the carbon emissions of dairy butter, would also be banned.
Yeah, I mean, if they went ahead with this, I just think it would have been the most ridiculous thing probably ever passed in the history of mankind.
Yeah.
That's a bold statement there. But you know what I mean? Like, it was just beyond ridiculous.
Yes. A slew of leading companies such as Upfield, Nestle and Oatly, as well as environmentalists Greta Thunberg and George Monbiot, spoke out against the amendment, which has been branded plant-based dairy censorship. Yes.
I mean, how interesting that you've got Nestle in there at the same time. Now, they are one of the most evil companies on the planet. This says a lot, actually, and this ties into our previous conversation, right? So you've got one of the most evil companies on the planet in favour of rejecting this amendment. Why? Because they see that plant-based products are the future. They've already got their foot in the door. They've already got plant-based products on their...
amongst their brands.
Right? And so it would hurt them from a business perspective. And I think that's the game changer. The more that these evil... animal-based product companies start to move their product line towards plant-based, the less of this kind of BS is going to try to be passed, because the big players are saying, no, that's going to affect our bottom line. So it's different if it's just Oatly or Beyond or, the smaller new plant-based groups. Yeah, no one really cares about them. But the big players, sorry, they're not going to let that.
Their vote carries more clout, doesn't it?
Doesn't it? That's interesting. And I think that is so fantastic because it's like a safety net. I feel like things are only going to go so far.
Yes, they can only get so bad.
Yeah. If you've got all these big companies going, no, we're now in the plant-based game. You can't do that to guys like us.
Yeah.
So it's a good thing.
Good observation. Non-governmental organisation ProVeg International also created an online petition against the dairy ban, which garnered nearly 500,000 signatures.
Yeah.
That's great. I remember signing
that.
one. Now, the controversial amendment has been dropped ahead of the EU's super trilogues. Jasmine Deboo is the Vice President of ProVeg International. In a statement sent to Plant-Based News, she said, "This is a common sense victory.
Yeah.
Citizens, industry and experts have spoken and the EU listened. It would be absurd to censor plant-based products at the same time as telling consumers to switch to a plant-based diet."
Right, exactly. Yes.
Imagine censoring electric cars or recycled paper.
Yeah. Oh, that
Good
is
analogies.
great.
I love a good analogy,
That
don't
is
you?
great,
Yeah.
yes. And it's true. I mean, all of these bodies are essentially pushing for a plant-based diet. They're advocating for that. Nobody has come out and said a plant-based diet is bad for the planet and bad for your health and bad for animals. You shouldn't do that. The UN told us so long ago.
In 2010, they urged the world to move to a more plant-based diet.
And as we said, livestock's long shadow, 2006.
15 years ago, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so how do you push for a plant-based diet while censoring a plant-based diet?
Yeah.
Plant-based products.
Makes no sense
You
at all.
can't do that. I mean, they already have. So what, earlier on you said they can't, where is it?
Already prohibits the use of terms including almond milk or vegan cheese.
Right, so you can't use milk, cheese, the actual dairy names.
Which is bad enough, isn't it?
That's really bad.
They wanted to make it impossible for plant-based competitors to do business.
Yeah.
We applaud the EU for its clear-sightedness under immense pressure from environmentally reckless interests. Oh, I like that. Francisco Guerriero MEP was one of many politicians to slam the amendment. It's a shame that this amendment was even on the table in the first place, he said.
Exactly.
We can't get back the precious time that was lost trying to find a compromise over this nonsensical amendment. But we can be very happy that negotiators finally came to their senses and decided to drop it.
That's the thing. How much time, energy, resources wasted? Like, we don't have that time.
And that's also what they're trying to do, the animal products industry.
Oh, yes.
They're trying to, I guess, cripple the plant-based competitors before they can even find their feet.
Yes, and if we get you all kind of debating and focused on this area...
Spending money trying to litigate this, that and the other.
Business as usual happens over here, and we will continue whilst we keep you occupied fighting over words, basically. Absolute nonsense. And that's really scary because we're running out of time, and it's the 6th mass extinction. Right? We've got how many years left until we all blow up? What's the prediction?
The fishless oceans by 2048.
There's that, but what else is happening? There was the climate clock that was ticking.
Oh yes,
wasn't it 7 years?
We had 12 years to avoid climate catastrophe, said the UN back in 2018, I think, which means we've got 9 years now.
Not right.
Yeah.
Anyway, we've got all these timelines, all these potential disasters that are about to go off.
And these industries are playing games.
Over words.
Yeah, over words.
So that's what you call scary and irresponsible.
Yes.
Really, really bad. It shouldn't have even been allowed to even... Sure, they were obviously going to put it on the table. It should have been dismissed out of hand first up.
That's right. It shouldn't have got to the point that it did.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, so
there you go.
Well, that's a good news story. That is great. And it would have been very, very scary world if that actually passed, I tell you what.
Very scary indeed.
My goodness.
Yeah. But a good way to bring this News Desk episode to a close, I think, on a positive note.
Yes. Let us know your thoughts on everything we've spoken about, but, particularly this last article that we're ending off with. You must be so happy to hear this, because we were talking about it for such a long time.
Yeah.
Thinking, when are they going to make this decision?
I know, it was somewhat drawn out, or it felt that way anyway.
And it felt really, like, the longer it went on, the more I was thinking...
Nervous?
Oh, no. Yeah, nervous that they're going to pass this.
Right.
Like, why are they taking
so long? You thought they were deliberating, for example.
Yeah, so I was very relieved to see this headline.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that brings us to the end of another News Desk. Hope you've all enjoyed listening to this.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate your company wherever you are in the world and whatever you're doing. And thanks to everyone who lets us know also where they are in the world and what they're doing when they listen to our podcast. It's really nice for us to hear. It's heartwarming. And we also like sharing it with others on our social media audience as well.
Yes, and we like picturing you doing what you say you do when you listen. So, for example, some people are like, oh, I'm off, having a walk right now and I've got you in my ears, which is really cool. Someone on Instagram the other day sent us a video that they posted on their stories where they were listening to our podcast as they were practicing their pole dancing in their pajamas or whatever they were wearing.
Yeah.
It was gorgeous. I can't remember the person's name, but thank you for sending us that and posting that on the stories, and it was hilarious. We loved it and we shared it, and it was just... as I said, like, really fun for us to see you guys in action whilst listening to this show. It's really cool.
Keep them coming, as well as your requests for any interviews, for people that you might like us to reach out to, any film reviews, any news articles that you want us to respond to, anything for our potluck podcasts.
Any topics, scenarios that you want us to talk about, different situations, hypotheticals.
Things that are actually happening in your life.
Yes, and of course, don't forget to send us your complaints. As we mentioned at the beginning of this episode, we do want to keep that vegan complaints series going, so send them this way. And
keep those comments coming under the show notes in Patreon as well. We love interacting with you.
I feel like we've given you a lot of homework. There's like 10,000 calls to action. You've been put to task. Our TVC army is out there.
Just do whatever you feel called to of those options.
Guys, I'm giving you $1 a month. I'm listening to your show. That's enough. All right. Thank you so much for joining us once again. Hope you've enjoyed this episode, and we will talk to you again in the next one.
Bye, everyone.
See you then. Bye.